So I pawned my wife's engagement ring this week.
Can you just stop for a second, and can we just kind of back things up a minute?
What part did you miss? The part where I pawned my wife's engagement
Yes,
ring?
that part. Can you just why did you pawn your wife's engagement ring? Like, what did Shay do to you?
Oh no, it wasn't her.
Oh,
She doesn't even
okay.
know yet, actually. But it'll be fine. Trust me, it'll be fine. It's just last week we were talking about you were looking at the car, right? And I know I told you it was a bad idea.
Yes,
But
you did.
but then I was looking again.
Mm.
And I was looking at all the vehicles, and I thought these look really nice. Then I looked at mine, and I realized that doesn't look as nice. And I don't have any money, but I know that I said it was a bad idea, but I really think this is a good investment. And so I pawned my wife's engagement ring, and I bought a car. I did it.
So what you're telling me is that you're a hypocrite.
Don't say that. I'm gonna get convicted with I just thought about it, and I thought it was a good idea. And I mean, thank goodness we're not talking about money again this week, because whoo, I'd feel so bad. So I feel like I should clarify.
You should mention that you have not pawned off your wife's engagement ring.
I have not pawned off my wife's engagement ring. Honey, if you're listening, I'm sorry, even though you don't listen, so I'm asking you to listen. No, I have not pawned off my wife's engagement ring. I thought about it one time.
I really highly doubt that.
I didn't, but
Okay.
I thought about thinking about it.
So that's like today then.
Yeah,
Like
today
the
when we were
ideas
thinking-
only come into your mind today.
It's only happened today.
Yes.
But no, it is not pawned off. It is safely on her finger. I just was using it as an object lesson, because we use those sometimes.
Welcome to Sent From Above.
Welcome to Sent From Above, the podcast where we talk about money.
No, catching kingdom culture and exploring the heart of
This
God.
week we're talking about money.
But we're talking about money this week. So
Yeah.
in the two-part series of financial surrender.
Woohoo! The easiest thing to do as a Christian.
Yes.
As a person.
In North America.
In North America, it's so easy to just relinquish
Control of
control
your
of your
bank
money.
account.
It's because really I find in North America, finances are pretty insignificant to people. It doesn't really mean a whole lot.
I think you're right.
Yeah, exactly. So last week, what did we talk about, Ewan? We talked about surrendering it, right? Like giving it all up.
Yeah, I think I wanted to start off the series like that.
Yeah.
Specifically because we could talk about, like, this week's going to be talking about more stewarding your money.
Yeah.
How to act with money as a Christian.
Wait, are you saying that we should actually be aware of how we're spending money? We shouldn't just throw it all in a lake and burn it?
Not burn it, no. Like either like not burn it or don't spend all of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
But I mean, I just think, like you were saying, it's important that we covered surrender first, because if we had covered stewarding it and like investing and all that stuff, this first, people would have been like, prosperity gospel, prosperity gospel.
prosperity gospel or welcome to the Dave Ramsey show. Like, you know, one of the two. Like,
I'm Gary V. Anyway, yeah. So last week we talked about being able to give it all up and
Yeah.
being willing to actually surrender your right to it, not letting it control your life, and trusting in God to keep you.
I know. Yeah.
And this week, what are we talking about?
We're talking about stewarding, you know, like how to, you know, like, I don't know, like some people like might actually have those parents or those grandparents like, steward your money, honey. You just make sure that you that you're saving enough money. And you know, it's just like, you know, it's like God told us that not to be stupid with our finances. It's like you're right. But most people's idea when you say, you know, not to be stupid with your finances is to make sure that you are comfortable at all stages of life, and that if something happened to you, that you would be financially stable at all times, and that you shouldn't be giving like more than 10%. If you 10% is fine, but if you go
fine.
over 10%,
It's that holy number.
God forbid, if the Lord asks you to give $500 today, that you give it.
That's a bad financial decision. Don't do it.
So that's why we talked about surrender last week.
Yeah,
is
because everything out of stewarding your money has to
Yeah.
come from a place of surrendering your money
Absolutely.
first. Because otherwise, like you said, you get the people that are like, don't get like. I really feel the Lord's telling me to give $5,000. Can't be the Lord. No, That's going to put you in a rough position. Can't do it. Or the people that are like, I feel to give $5,000. How much money you got in your bank? 7,000. Give the 7 or you're a sinner.
I know it's the idea of the two different kinds of sides, like we were talking about last week, like family A being the people who are fly by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
They have to be in a place of financial surrender. If the Lord asked them to save up $10,000, if they're financially surrendered, they would have no problem doing it. And family B being the family that is more saving, and they have like 14 different accounts that have like like completely different things that are going on. Like each child has 2 college accounts, and
in case they want to go a second time.
Like they have like a $4,000 account for their dog expenses that just in case the Lord takes away their dog.
My puppy needs a haircut.
Just in case the Lord gave that dog testicular cancer or something like that,
yes,
like
that's how that
just in
works.
case, you got to have enough money in there just if the dog's teeth need to get removed later in life or something like that.
Or you're like somebody that I know that I won't mention names, where it's just like, oh, my dog is sick. Well, time to put that sucker down.
Yeah.
Great.
But that family B, like if the Lord asked them to give up their child's college account, they have to be comfortable doing it. And there's a lot of people who would actually, come and say, the Lord would never ask you to do that. It's like, that's not true. Where in the Bible does it ever say that the Lord asks you to give up your right to literally everything?
Here's a question. Do you think that Zacchaeus had money saved? Of course he did. He was filthy rich.
That's why he was able to give all the money back to people.
He was filthy rich. He had money saved. I don't know if he had kids and a wife or not, but if he did, he probably had a good inheritance for his kids. And the Lord said, get rid of all of it.
Yeah.
And pay everyone back what you've stolen. Now, the faithfulness of the Lord is that Zacchaeus had the understanding of, this is going to work out. There's no way it doesn't work out because he's telling me to do it. But it's still being willing to give that up. And I think that's the foundation that was needed last week to get into the idea of
how to steward.
Because last week we kind of not bashed or anything, but we focused on the family that wouldn't be willing to give it up, right? We've kind of focused on the families. You have to be willing to give it all. And this week, we're almost kind of focusing on the family that's not necessarily the family, but you have to be able to steward your money. Yeah. Just like you would be able to steward anything else the Lord gives you.
I never actually thought about that. Yeah, like last week was definitely like the family who is, financially stable. Yeah. Being able to, if the Lord asked you to be in a place that you were not financially stable, in terms of the world, you're always financially stable in the kingdom. Yeah. You have an inheritance that it's bigger than anything. But in terms of
Jeff Bezos, who?
But you like that family should be able to be in a place where they're financially surrendered. And I guess it's a good point. Like this week is for the family that isn't, financially stable right now.
Now that doesn't mean that it's your fault.
No. At
all. But it's just there's a part of being in the kingdom. The nature of being in the kingdom is that when I love this. This isn't something that Christians like to talk about. But when God gives you a gift, the expectation from God is that when he comes back to check on the gift, it's increased. That hasn't stagnated and hasn't gotten lower. Like it's the parable of the talents. One got the talent, buried it. One got the talent, got back what?
2 times, and there's another one that got 5 times, and another one that got 10 times. I think.
And it's like number one, he cursed the one who did nothing with it and buried it. Yes, he was like,
why didn't you just put this in a bank account? Like, why the heck did you bury it? Like, at least give me interest back.
Exactly. And then the others, they invested it. And I mean, there's obviously there's the overlying principle there of investing and pouring what God's given you and getting an increase. But I think it does absolutely apply to finances.
Oh yeah.
If he's given you a portion, he's expecting you to take that portion and bring it back.
Multiply.
Because what does he expect, right? He expects fruitfulness. He expects to give you one seed and for that seed to grow an orchard.
Yes.
That's the nature of the kingdom. It's actually the system of the kingdom. Yes. And so in order to do that, we need to know how to steward our finances because let's be honest here, money is important. Money is very important. it keeps the world running, literally.
Yeah.
So we as believers need to be able to use it in a godly manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Like, one thing that we haven't mentioned this in a long time, in my 1 year of Bible college so far,
Oh boy.
one of the cool things was we actually learned that in the Bible, the biggest topic ever, like in terms of just like word count, is money. It's like the most mentioned thing. Like it's up there. It's way up there and like the most mentioned things. So it's important whether it's in a third world country or whether it's in North America. It is the thing that keeps everyone alive. It's also the thing that causes people to go completely insane. It's the thing that causes people to, whether Christian or unchristian, like to find joy. I think people will be like, looking for it like all the time. That's kind of like me and you were kind of talking about it earlier. Like I was listening to Michael Koulianos, and he was like, "Thank the Lord that I'm not running this rat race, of life where like it's just like a 9 to 5. Nothing wrong with a 9 to 5, but like I work I know. Like I work a 8:30 to 4:30 job,
which is better than a 9 to 5.
Yes,
you are
God forbid that last half hour.
Every time Ewan gets a chance, he just likes to like elevate himself a little bit.
Absolutely.
So he's like, I'm not working a 9 to 5. I'm working an 8:30 to 4:30.
Yeah, I know. But that's the thing that people always run after. That's why the Bible kind of mentions the love of money.
Yeah.
The love of money is the root of all evil. Money is not the root of all evil. Some people think, that family we were kind of talking about, those people that we were kind of talking about last week who think that money is, and that you should, if you have any semblance of money, that it should be given away or completely just
if
no
you
nice
are
things.
a pastor who is making more than $70,000 a year, you are ridiculous, and you should be blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, well, technically speaking, and this is just a funny little tidbit. Say, for example, take when Hillsong was at the top of their game.
Mm-hmm.
Their pastor was making about $350,000 a year salary. Your church is paying your pastor. Say your church is paying, not you in particular, but say your church is paying your pastor like, I don't know, say $65,000 a year. It actually ends up working out that Hillsong's church was paying their pastor a lower percentage of their funds than the average church in North America was, based on profit margins. But people are like, whoa, you spent that much on your pastor? But guess what? That's also good stewardship, because you're blessing those who are blessing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, like for that family, for those people who, whether they,
money is the root of all evil.
Whether that family is a family or anyone out there that's a kind of a person that's like, who loves to spend, a spender, somebody who just, always hits rock bottom, whether that, like they're always spending money on smokes, or they're always spending money on gifts for people, or even for video games, or if they're just sucked into credit card debt, or whatever, or like honestly, people who just don't realize how important money is, because even as Christians, we kind of forget the fact that money is one of the most talked about in the Bible, but it's also like the thing that our world runs on. So we can't actually ignore it. It's impossible for us to ignore it, but it's that's why we can't fall in love with it, even though it's one of the biggest things in our world. It's not something that we can fall in love with, because the only thing that we can fall in love with is Jesus. Well, and
I think that a reason money is such an issue, both in culture and how important it is, and why it's the root of the love of it is the root of all evil, is because the Lord wants us to be tied to Him, for Him to be our our substance, for Him to be the one that provides for us.
Yeah,
and He wants it to be freely given, in terms of He gives away His life freely so that we can receive it. Whereas the system of money kind of promotes this cycle of, this is what you're worth, so this is what I'm going to pay, and it's this exchange.
Yeah.
Right? And so because the nature of it is works and exchange and earning, it's kind of antithesis to what grace does.
I know, yeah.
But that's why as believers, we need to take something. That's why Jesus talks about taking the things that are dark and redeeming them to light. We need to take the things that could be used for darkness, the love of money, that world, and redeeming it to be an asset for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Because it's incredibly important.
Yeah, no, and it's something that people don't like to think about it. Like you were talking about, like pastors, like it's something like if your pastor does not get paid, they will burn out.
Oh yeah.
Their family will burn out. Like, it's a bad thing because we cannot ignore finances and the kingdom becoming one thing.
Yeah.
Because finances has a place in the kingdom.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who agree with that to a large extent with modern day American prosperity gospel. We kind of mentioned last week, that
Buy my miracle spring water.
Yes, that kind of thing. Like prosperity gospel is biblical, but the prosperity gospel that America has made is unbiblical.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are completely opposite to that, where money should be like money is evil. Why would you ever possess that?
Yeah.
But where we need to find that balance where we're able to first off surrender our money, and then through that surrender, thinking with the mind of Christ, we're actually able to steward that. Because there's the amount of times I get told in the run of a week and the run of a month, don't make stupid financial choices, from old people, from middle-aged people, from young people, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And it's like when I mention the idea of the Lord wants me to do this with my finances, there are so many people that will completely come against me, not in a condemnation way, not but condemning,
in a common sense way.
Like you should know better. Yeah. Why would you ever do that? Because that's not a right move.
Which is crazy, because being somebody who's close to you and knowing 90% of the things that happen in your life, I trust you full-heartedly when it comes to that. And the reason I trust you full-heartedly is because I've seen the fruit of it. I've seen the fact that you've surrendered your finances and you're willing to give to whoever the Lord calls you to. And whether it seems foolish in the eyes of men or not, if you feel it seems wise in the eyes of God, you'll just do it. But what I've seen that people will comment is they'll comment to you that that's a dumb financial decision, you're wasting your money. But I've seen time and time and time and time again where you give far more than you needed to, and the Lord blesses you far more than you expect. And he replenishes it because you're giving it to him. And he knows I can trust Ewen to steward the money that I give him. He's not going to give somebody who wastes their money more if they can't steward it.
Yeah.
Whereas he trusts you, and whenever you could look at me literally and be like, I really feel to empty out my savings, not to buy a car. But if you looked at me and said, I feel to empty out my savings account and bless this whatever, or give to this whatever, or give it to my pastor, I would be like, I trust you because I know the Lord and I've seen what he's done with you, and I've seen him replenish it over and over, and more than it was last time. If you had $2,000 in your bank account and you gave $500, out of the wild blue nowhere, you're going to check your bank account, because I've seen it happen with you where somebody will bless you or whatever else. And when you had $2,000 and gave away 500, all of a sudden now you've got $2,600.
I know.
And it's because he just keeps filling it and filling it and filling it.
I know. Like it's so good. But the coolest part about that is not just that it's being given, that it's like, it's leaving and then, wow, like the Lord is completely caring for me. But it's actually the fact that knowing what to do with your money at the right time, like I am one of those people who have like 10 to 12 bank accounts.
Oh yeah.
10
to 12 investments folders. And
I know, like I am one of those people, but the reason why I have that is because of stewardship of money, where it needs to be, what's going to be coming up. And there's a lot of people who just don't steward like they should. So there's three main things I want to talk about today.
Oh, sorry, stewarding our money.
Yes.
We just got back from a break, so
Yeah.
I forgot what we were talking about. Anyway.
There's the three different things that I actually want to get into. And I just kind of want to readdress how important some of these things are, because money's important, but why is it important? And especially for us that live in North America, it's kind of a big factor in our lives and how we live. It's a staple of and people make it a part of their identity. People make money, like keeping up with the Joneses. Like you always have this desire inside of you to be better than everyone because of it. The more money you possess, the better you'll be. And some people really just place it in a place of major importance over God, even if they're Christian or non-Christian. But how do we get out of a place of a love of money? Like the majority of, because I would go to say that 95% of North America has a love of money. You know?
Yeah. It's so bad that, like, I mean, and I'll be real. I'm a victim of it in some ways, because we literally live in a world where every year we need to get a brand new $1,200 iPhone.
Yeah.
Or at least every 2 years when our upgrade's up.
When our contract's
right?
up. Yeah.
We always have to get the new one. We always have to get the new one. We always have to. It's just a world where, because it's all about importance, it's all about image, it's all about what people think of you. If you have an iPhone 4, people are going to look down on you and say, now it probably doesn't even function anymore, but you know what I mean?
I know.
Right? Like you always want to, you want to have that image. Now for me, I will just be very frank. I'm addicted to Apple products. I have no care what people think of me when they see my phone. I just want it. Anyway, which might be even worse.
That's probably worse.
But we live in a culture where money is so not only important, but I think honestly is elevated to the most important thing. And what happens then is the only way we can get out of that place, the only way we can get to the place where we can actually steward our money godly, because stewarding your money doesn't just mean getting more of it. Stewarding your money actually just means doing with your money what God wants you to do with your money. And the only way we can do that, the only way we can get out of this cycle of buy, money being the most important thing, is to surrender it, like we talked about last week. To completely give it up. To treat it, and I think this is the big important thing that we need to talk about, to understand and treat it like it's not even yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, and a lot of people don't like this when you mention it, but I think that the first step is to actually realize, let's get into Dave Ramsey territory now.
I
like talking about this.
Ewan's excited.
Is starting with the basics and start saving. Like, yes, giving is super important. We'll talk about that next. But when it comes down to your livelihood, I personally believe, especially when you're living in North America and like how important finances are, I believe that each person, whether Christian or non-Christian, should be thinking about emergencies, should be thinking about their kids, should be thinking about expenses that come in the future. Like a good example is like CERB. Like a lot of people didn't actually end up putting money away for tax time next year, like because there's going to be a big hit. Or like another one would be like an emergency fund, like I don't like. If people want to hear more about the saving and stuff, just go watch the Dave Ramsey show on YouTube. But it is biblical, like like with the talents, the story of the talents, making sure that money doesn't get lost and go into oblivion, because that Christians and non-Christians alike, there's a lot of Christians out there that love to buy their toys.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of Christians that love to buy their toys, and there's also a lot of Christians that give so much that they completely neglect their family.
Well, it's a biblical, saving is not only just biblical, but it's really biblical in the sense that as a parent, and I don't have a kid yet, but I'm married, so that's a real thing now, right? It's having a child is a real thing that is in my future. And you're about to get married in 6 months.
Yeah. So
having a child is a very real thing in your future. Biblically speaking, all parents should have an inheritance to give their kid.
Mm.
That's a biblical principle, to help the next generation get further than you did. And you can't give what you don't have. And a big thing about saving that you're talking about, and I think this is something that also is really difficult because of the rampant credit card debt in North America. And that is, biblically, as a believer, it is a biblical principle that you should never be pulling from a debt. You should never be pulling from a deficit. Now, a mortgage is one thing. You're getting a mortgage on a house. But like pulling from a debt, a deficit, pulling from money you don't have. Because what happens is then, and this is just the truth, this is a biblical concept, you are not supposed to owe anybody anything other than the Lord.
I know.
You're supposed to be in freedom. And when you don't know how to save, you don't know how to have a set aside thing for emergencies, what ends up happening is you pull from what you don't have. And because of that, you're without, and not only are you without, but you're in the hole. And when you save and you take what the Lord's given you and you save it, or you invest it, or you steward it and further it, then the Lord can look at you and say, wow, I gave you $500, say, just for example, because we're talking about we're talking about money. I gave you $500, and you took that $500 that I gave you, invested in the kingdom, treated it properly, saved it, and now you've turned that $500 for the kingdom into $1,000 for the kingdom.
Absolutely.
And then the Lord can say, I can trust you with 1,000. I can trust you with 2,000. Because you're showing him that you're capable of handling what he's giving you.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is not blowing it.
Okay.
Because I used to live in a world where I live in a world where my mentality was literally, if I have any money left at the end of a 2-week period before I get my check, I need to blow it.
Yeah.
Like I might as well be at zero again, you know?
I know. I remember I was just doing a little bit of YouTube browsing not that long ago. I think I don't remember if it's the stat, if it's 3 out of 5, but I know it's over 50% of the population or it was either 40 or 50% of the population does not have more than $1,000 in their bank account, which is crazy. In a society where the average pay rate is like
$2,000 every 2 weeks.
$50,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's the average.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there's people who are getting paid 30 for full time, and then there's also people who are getting paid 100. But the craziest part is that 40% of those people do not have a $1,000 in their bank account. And just to think that there are so many Christians out there who do not have more than $1,000 in their bank. That's not a diss against Christians who don't have a $1,000 in their bank account, but it's the fact that unless you're in some wild circumstance, like what happened if your car just decided to break down all of a sudden?
Yeah.
You know, like, well, even more important, what if your grandma died and you needed to make an emergency flight to go to Newfoundland?
Yep.
If your grandma lived in Newfoundland, you know, like.
But also, I think the reason that comes, especially in Christian circles, just to kind of chat a little bit about it, is because we've spent the last 500 years thinking of ourselves as paupers.
Yeah.
Thinking of ourselves as nothings, as beggars, when the truth is, God has called, whether you have money in your bank account or not, God has called you a king, and your father owns the cattle on 1,000 hills and a storehouse that is limitless. Now, that doesn't mean you're always going to have $1 million, but what that means is what happens is we don't think for the future because we haven't learned how to think for the future. Even when you look at revival is always used to spark a fire that becomes an all-consuming forest fire. But what happens is, because of the culture we live in, especially in North America, nobody's taught that. So what ends up happening is revivals burn out in 10 years because they weren't stewarded and furthered. That random gift you got of $2,000 or something like that, an inheritance of whatever where it came from, or something along those lines, ends up being blown in minutes because I have $2,000 to spend.
Yep.
Instead of, wait a second, I actually need to plan for my future because the Lord wants me to live a long life.
Yes.
where I can do what he wants for a long period of time. It's the same thing as health. We live in a culture that is right now, doesn't think about what's coming.
Yeah.
So what happens is we have people dying at 60 from diseases that are completely avoidable, all because they weren't thinking for the future. Yeah. And that's what stewardship is.
I know. Well, if you just take a second, think about it. If the average Canadian person makes $50,000 a year, and with my quick calculations here, if every single person, which I think this is the baseline for things, is that if every person decided to save 10% of their income yearly, if they made $50,000 after tax, if they made $50,000 after tax, they would be able to save $5,000 in their bank account. Then it goes up like 10,000. It's a great place to start. Not 10,000, 10% a great place to start, just like tithing is. But saving goes much further than that. It's such a balance too, because it can become such an obsession. Like right now, like my goal for saving, because I'm living at my parents' house, because they're helping me out, they're blessing me so much, they're allowing me just to stay there, and I don't have to pay for groceries, I don't have to pay for my house, my rent or anything. I only have to pay for my own expenses, like my insurance for my car, my gas for my car. I don't pay for a phone bill because I bought a yearly plan for like $100, save some money on that.
What phone provider are you with? Because a lot of people probably want to know where they get $100 a year contract.
I can't say. Is that something you're allowed to say in a podcast?
I think so.
Well, Freedom Mobile, then.
Freedom Mobile, yeah. Anyway, moving forward.
No data, of course.
That's okay.
Everyone uses data. But then, of course, you go up into that 25% margin on being able to save. Then you're automatically saving, like, how much would that be? That's like almost like 15,000 or something. Let's just see.
Well, you're making what, 23, 24,000? I mean, no.
Yeah, $12,000 you'd be saving a year.
Yeah.
If you save 25%.
Yeah. That's a lot.
I know, and like right now, like I'm saving my goal is, I don't always hit the goal.
Yeah.
My goal is 65% because I have a wedding coming up.
Yeah.
Because
and that's unreasonable for most people because they have bills and all that stuff.
But even there's those people who are making that $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
But they are only saving 5%. If you are making $120,000 a year, you actually have the potential to, I guess you could say, save 65% because you can use the other, 35% for your expenses, for your house, for everything.
Yeah, I think, but that also brings us to our next point that you were going to talk about, and that is, you might have $12,000 in your savings account, but if God looks at you and says, "I need you to give 10 of that away to this person or to this group or to this organization or to this church, to this whatever, to this situation," you have to be willing to not hold on to it so tightly that it becomes, but I worked so hard to save this.
I know.
Because you realize, and this is something that all believers need to realize, and it's something you and I are coming into very deeply, and that is, it's not I who lives, but Christ who lives in me. So any dollars that I have in my bank account aren't mine anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if he's saying you need to give it, you just need to give it. And there's an importance to giving, because because I think it's good that we covered saving first and then giving, because there's an importance to saving, and a lot of times the reason we save is so that we have an abundance that we can pull from.
I know.
Give.
Well, you think about it, like let's just say that like one of my accounts right now, I had some extra money from my missions trip. It was a crazy story. Jesus, I was asking him, "Lord, would you provide for me to go on this missions trip?" And I was asking, it was $3,500, $3,700 to go on the missions trip. So I started fundraising for it. I made coffee, I made a bunch of other stuff, and in the end of it, I ended up making double the amount that I needed for my mission trip. So I put the rest of it into an account specifically for Jesus because he gave that to me. And now that Jesus account is in an investment account, making 7.5% every year. So if I never actually use any of that money ever until I go on my next mission trip, let's say, there's going to be more in that account that I can give back to the Lord because I've saved. And that's the craziest part. If you think about it, if you have a a good goal for when you're, let's just say, 65 years old, and you've been working a great job all your life. If you have $100,000 saved in an investment account, let's say, or $50,000 saved in an investment account, and you're making dividends back, if you have $100,000 saved into a dividend account, each month you're relatively making $400 to $500 a month, just passive income.
Yep.
If you have that money, you're actually able to give more now. Not in terms of like, oh, you get more and you can just keep of course you got to think about saving, reinvesting and stuff, but at the same time it's like now you have an overabundance that overflows from you into other people.
But that's the thing, right? Is the thing that we need to understand as the church is that we are supposed to be pulling from an abundance. I can't give you what I don't have.
Yeah.
I can't if I haven't stewarded my money to have more than what I need, and the Lord asked me to give it to you, and I don't have it to give to you, then I'm stepping outside of His will because I haven't thought ahead. I haven't sought Him. What do you want me to do with my finances? What do you want me to save it here? Do you want me to give it here? And the importance is, and what it all boils down to is when we realize we get so we can give, and by our giving we're blessed and we get, and when we get, we give more.
Yes.
And it's this cycle of abundant blessing where the Lord is blessing you and you're blessing another and they're being blessed by it so they can bless another. And then it's this kingdom cycle of taking care of one another and supporting one another. And it all comes down to stewarding, but it all comes down to understanding that money is not an idol. And that's the third thing that you wanted to talk about. And that is the fact that money can't be an idol. When you put it up on that pedestal where it's higher than God, then it immediately cannot be blessed.
I know. Yeah.
Because God is looking at it as an idol. Because it's something that you're valuing over Him. And I think one thing we talked about last week, which is important to talk about this week, is you need to make sure your number one source is Jesus.
Yes.
He's your provider. He is your sustenance. He's the one that keeps you going. Because if He isn't, and you're relying on money, money can fail.
Yes.
Money can fall away. And what happens is God only trusts you and to steward what He knows won't pull you away from Him. Like we talked about last week, some people that's $1,000. If they have $1,000 in their bank account, they'd stop leaning on God.
I know.
And God can't bless past that, right? And He wants to. He wants to pour into you as long as you're relying on Him.
Yeah. And here's the key, I think, that I just kind of popped in my mind. The key to being a master at stewarding your money comes only when you realize that you have the mind of Christ. First, having that realization of you have the mind of Christ, and that it's not just the mind of Christ and then my mind, but it's actually the mind of Christ. The mind of Christ has come down from heaven to be with you. The house of God. You are now the house of God. Jesus was the house of God, still is the house of God, and He's called you. Yeah, He's in me,
and I'm in Him.
It's just crazy. But man, the only way that we can steward our money properly is by having that mind of Jesus. When He lives inside of us, He can live inside of us, and we can reject the mind of Christ.
Absolutely.
But when we realize that, yes, He's inside of us, and oh, wow, I can think the thoughts of God, then it immediately connects. It's like that heart knowledge, head knowledge connecting, And by that, and this is the crazy part, is that He gives us the divine wisdom to know exactly what to do with our finances. He'll say, Ewan, I need you to save $10,000, or I need you to put that $2,000 away that you got from this paycheck into this one account because I said so. Or maybe He'll even tell you straight up, it's like, Joash, I need you to give $500 to this specific mission organization today. And it comes with that. It comes with that thing because if you think the thoughts of God and you're in constant connection with God, and it's so wild. If you're actually in that and you're in full financial surrender to Him, there is no doubt that money that you give will not just come back around, because that's not the purpose. It's not if you give with the intention of the money coming back around, it'll never come back around. But if you give with the intention of, Lord, I love you, I want to further your kingdom, He will never fail to resupply.
And here's the thing, there's a difference between expecting no, I won't say expecting, but there's a difference between intention and understanding. And that is this: if I give with the intention of getting back, I'm giving for the wrong reasons. But I know my Father. And I can give with the understanding that he is who he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's never going to leave me without. And in fact, his nature is to take what you gave and give back to you tenfold.
Absolutely.
Now, does that mean there's going to be money all the time? No. But I trust my Father, and I know my Father, who he is as a person. And so what ends up happening is we don't give with the intention of getting back, but we trust him. Absolutely. And we know what he's going to do. And that's what it boils down to, is trusting him with your money, giving him your money, and saying, I think really just to end it all off, what it boils down to is this. Ask God, Father, what do you want me to do with my money? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Sent From Above this week. I hope it blessed you. I hope you understood some things. Maybe it helped you with, maybe you opened a savings account. We can hope. Maybe you gave $5,000. We can also hope. I'm just really praying that it blessed you and showed you a lot about financial stewardship. Follow us on all of our socials, on Instagram, Facebook, all at Sent From Above. And especially follow us on YouTube. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, then think about subscribing to us on YouTube and checking out our channel, because it's really fun to interact with you guys through video. And if you have anything to talk about, questions or whatever, just send us a message, send us a DM, follow us, like us, subscribe to us on YouTube, share our videos. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing week.